Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. We on to the final interview for the morning and a very important discussion. Alhamdulillah, our loved ones are already in the Holy Lands or will be making their way over the next week or 2 or 3 for that matter for Hajj, inshallah. One of the important, we've been covering very many different aspects of Hajj via Hajj diaries. And I think a very important aspect we sometimes overlook is our health issues. We may address the more, uh, you know, uh, problematic or those that are the more visible health issues. But not only Hajj, I think just in our everyday lives, we tend to neglect our feet, and they are the hardest working limbs of our body. We do tend to neglect them, and particularly during the time of Hajj, I do think that we need to be very aware of feet hygiene. And in light of that, on Hajj Diaries, Alhamdulillah, today we're going to be talking with Podiatrist Mohammed Azeem Shaik. Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and your listeners. Jazakallah for having me.
My pleasure entirely. Where do you practice from, Mohammed Azeem?
So currently I am based in Rosebank under the name
Right.
of Podiatry Africa, and
Right.
the other practice is in Gaborone, Botswana.
Okay. So we do now know where to find you. We need to come and have our feet sorted out. But be that as it may, the important issue that we're discussing today, um, we do neglect our feet in a very, very big way. And it is the most hardworking limbs of our body, but particularly during the time of Hajj. What do we need to be doing before we leave and whilst on Hajj? I often hear people saying things like, my feet are in such a bad way after I've got back from Hajj because of the marble flooring on the mataf, for example, and a whole host of other issues. What is
Gee,
the starting point? What is the starting point regarding foot care pre and post Hajj?
no, definitely. So, like you said, when you go for Hajj, it's a very physical thing. It's demanding in it on your feet. There's a lot of walking, and you'd be standing a lot. And then to add to it, in the Arab countries, it tends to get a bit hot, right? So you tend to sweat a lot more. So before you go on Hajj, I know, of course, you would speak to your trusted ulama on this, but the type of shoes that you're going to take is very important, especially when you are doing your Hajj. So we would recommend you select something comfortable. It's well fitting, has adequate support and cushioning. And when we talk about support, now a lot of people would go out with sandals and that sort of thing, and there's different rulings in it on the type of sandals that you wear. What we would recommend is something possibly with good ankle support, so your foot is locked into the shoe. It doesn't slide around with a lot of walking in it. If your foot tends to slide around, you you tend to get a lot more blisters, and then your feet tend to hurt. So with good supporting shoes, you can avoid that, and it would make your Hajj a little bit more easier. Secondly, maybe a few weeks before you go for Hajj, with the shoes that you do get, try to walk them in a bit so they're not so stiff while you're walking, right? When they're a bit stiff, they tend to cause a lot more pain in it as well. So maybe walk them in a few weeks before you do go for Hajj. Another thing that we would also recommend while you are on Hajj is wearing moisture wicking socks. What this means is socks that tend to take the moisture away from your feet. Now, when you wear cotton socks, that tends to hold the moisture in and keep it near your feet. And moisture um, causes fungus, right? So if you do have a little bit of a fungus infection in it on your foot, when your socks in it are moist, it's the perfect area for it to grow and get worse.
Okay, so can I go into a store and ask for moisture wicking socks, or is there a particular type of material? Do I ask for wool or some? I'm not sure what sort of socks I
So
should be taking along?
wool would be good. Wool socks I would recommend. What you can do also is if you just Google it, there are a few stores. I know, if I'm not mistaken, Cape Union does have something along these lines. They're called hiker socks, if I'm not mistaken. They do
Okay.
the exact same thing. You can have a look at that. I think your clicks, the scam, those sort of places should be able to assist in those type of socks.
Okay, Mohammed Azim, the other question then. Alhamdulillah, I went on Hajj about 9 years ago with my son Shukr. It was a beautiful, absolutely Mubarak journey, one of the best moments in my life. Shukr, Alhamdulillah, may it be repeated.
I
But
mean,
at the time we went, it was very, very hot. And as we are hearing from the hujaaj who are already there, that the heat is absolutely unbearable. People don't want to wear socks. Doesn't that make you even, don't you feel the heat even more when you're wearing socks? So, what is
yes,
the
so
answer then?
definitely, definitely. That's where we would recommend the moisture wicking socks. It would remove, of course, when your feet in it do sweat, it would remove the moisture, right? But also, if you're not wearing socks, that's fine. If you got your sandals and it on, that's perfectly fine. But for those that want to wear socks, maybe, right? And you do maybe suffer from maybe athlete's foot, or your feet tend to get a bit sweaty. You do have the powders in it that you can put into your socks that helps with killing off bacteria, not bacteria, helps stops fungal growth and bacteria and that in your socks. Just keeping your feet dry is good, but then also not too dry, right? Your feet, when it tends to get too dry, you get cracks in it on your feet, and with those cracks, it's easier for those cracks to open up and become wounds. Now, for maybe I'm not going to generalize it, but for your older people that do have diabetics, even the young people that are diabetic, wounds are not a good thing, right? Especially with diabetic patients, wounds take longer to heal, right? With a wound taking longer to heal, it's susceptible to infection, right? So that's why in this case, trying to keep your feet dry, also not too dry, is important. And if you do tend to have, or if you do pick up maybe an infection or a bit of a cut, we would recommend that you keep a first aid kit with you. You know, just plasters, a bit of antiseptic ointment, maybe a few painkiller tablets, bandages, that sort of thing. So if you do come across something like this, you're able to treat it and take care of it as soon as possible.
Mohammed, obviously, we are talking about your Hajj food care guide, and you've been through about 4 or 5 of those steps already. We'll try and cover all 12. But this applies to people back home as your everyday, regular hygiene food care regime. Am I correct?
100%, 100%. So, like you said, besides on Hajj, at home as well, right? What we would recommend is try to keep an extra pair of socks on you as well, right? So maybe during the course of the day, if your socks get wet, we don't recommend putting them back on. Maybe change them up, put a different pair on. And this goes especially for those people that are suffering from fungal infections and that sort of thing. When you put the same pair of socks back on, remember that fungus is still in the socks, right? So when you're putting it back on, it's like you're reinfecting your foot again, right?
Absolutely.
So even with the ointments in it that you're putting on, the treatment that you are trying to do, right, it's going to prolong it or not really help, because you're reinfecting yourself again, right?
What
So
about Okay, what about, I know a lot of the men folk use those leather cuffs, which obviously it's very convenient when you're in the workplace or out in public places. So when you make wudu, you just, you don't have to
move
take
over it.
those off, you wipe over it. How healthy are those cuffs for for foot health? Exactly. I'm going back to what you're talking about, feet sweating. A lot of people do have fungal infections or there's bacteria lurking around. You are actually opening yourself up to maybe coming down with athlete's foot or whatever the case may be.
Gino, definitely. So with the cuffs, just depending on the type of material that they have inside. So I know some cuffs come with wool inside. That's all right, because wool is also moisture wicking. It takes the moisture away from your socks. But also, uh, at the end of the day, when you do take off those socks, right, we recommend you cleaning your feet with a mild soap. Just, if there is anything on your feet, you're able to wash it away. You dry, especially in between your toes. Should maybe just take a little tissue, dry in between the toes, because it's the first place where fungal infections and bacteria start. In between your toes, because that's the perfect place for it, right? Number one, it's dark. Number two, it's easier for moisture to stay in those areas, right? So just wash your feet, dry it off, and then also with the cuffs that you are using, you can get an antifungal powder and that sort of things that you can put inside those socks just to kill off anything that is inside. What you can also do is during the day, right? So maybe try and keep two pairs. You alternate between the pairs. If you're wearing the one today, so the next day you put on the other one, and the previous one you leave it out in the sun, right? So the sun can kill off any bacteria and funguses and that you do have inside.
Okay, I figure that part of healthy foot care would also be the way you cut and trim your nails, which we know that we do this on a regular basis. But if you don't do that, what are the risks?
Okay, so firstly, cutting your nails is important, right? We recommend that you don't cut it too deep because this will cause ingrown. So if you tend to cut your nails very deep in, right, they tend to start growing out a bit wide and growing into your skin, right? This
Oh,
causes ingrown nails. And for us as podiatrists, when we see this, well, myself, I know it's like a little minor operation that we're going to do. I get a little bit
oh.
happy. But for you as a patient, it's or as a person, it's very painful. It's uncomfortable. Now, also while you're out on Hajj, you don't want to be suffering or having these issues. So just tend to cut your nails straight, right? Just till the edges.
Straight
Don't go too
across.
deep. Straight
Mhm.
across. Straight across. Yes. Don't go too deep. And yeah, I think for just keeping your nails not, like I said, short, cutting them not too deep, and you'll be all right during this time. Even doing that at home, that would save you a visit to a podiatrist later on.
Oh, okay. Uh, I think part of your 12th step at home or on Hajj, the recommendations is that if the footwear you're using creates friction or blisters, uh, obviously get rid of it, but it might be an expensive exercise. Having said that, you do suggest using plasters or bandages, but particularly something called moleskin. What is that? Okay, it seems like we've lost Mohammed Azeem. We are going, just give us a minute because we have run over time and we do want him to wrap up on this. So we'll try and get him again. Let's see if he is reconnecting. And if he doesn't, I'll just give you the final one or two points that he was meant to go through regarding a foot care guide, the Hajj foot care guide. But remember, this is. This is also recommended for our everyday foot care guide back home. We should be doing this nonetheless. Inshallah, stand by.
Humanity sets the agenda.
It was such an overwhelming feeling, that bus drive, and to see that minaret from a distance, subhanAllah, it is something that you can't explain.
Hajj Diaries 2023 is a daily 10-minute feature on Salam Media that takes place at 9:50 Central African Time. The feature reflects an array of topics that is reminiscence of Hajj moments, spiritual encouragements from hujaaj, tips and reflections from the Blessed Lands, info bites, and crossovers. Follow Salam Media's on-air and online coverage and connect yourself to the ultimate journey of Hajj. Hashtag Hajj 2023 SM.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. And we do have Mohammed Azeem Shaik, the podiatrist, back online, but not on a StreamYard. He's connected up with us via telephone. Mohammed, I don't know what happened there. We do apologize.
No, Mark, that's it's a fault on my part. You know what, ESCOM, they just make life very difficult.
Yep. I know the story. Okay, we've got a few steps to go through, which are important indeed. But the question I asked you is, what is mole skin?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Mole skin.
Oh, yes, all right. So this tends to be your skin on the areas of your foot that take high pressure. So maybe like under the balls of your feet or your heel, right? These are pressures. These are areas in your foot that take a lot of pressure, and you tend to get what we call hard skin or mole skin, if you will. Right?
Okay, right.
Yes. Now, in these areas, when you're constantly putting a lot of pressure in this area and there's hard skin, so basic hard skin we call callus. And if you continuously apply abnormal pressure to it, you tend to get cones and that sort of thing, which are painful. A cone feels like there's a stone in your shoe and it's poking you, right? So if you hear something just cushioning that area and provides a little bit of extra cushioning, right, you won't be able to get a cone, and it will make your pilgrimage a little bit easier.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. You guys talk about resting and elevating the feet. How important is that, and how do we do that?
No, that's very important, right? So after you, like for example, between Arafat and I think Muzdalifah, that's your first, when you're walking in between there, right? It is a long walk. So when you get to Muzdalifah, we recommend that you take a bit of a break, rest your feet. So what we would recommend is that you lift your feet above your heart, right? So this is where gravity will come into play and help push the blood from your feet back up towards your heart so it can circulate, so it can assist with that.
I think in your everyday life as well, if you walk a lot or, you're standing a lot in your day job, would you also recommend when you get home at night, try and elevate your feet above your heart? And for how long do you do that? So you lie down and you put cushions or something to elevate your feet. How long should one be doing that? How long do you keep that position?
Yes, so you are right. You should, even for those that are walking a lot during the day, and I would recommend that you do this at night when you get home. So about 5 to 7 minutes is good. You don't need to do it for too long. 5 to 7 minutes is good.
Okay, hydration, the importance of hydration regarding foot care?
Yes, very important as well. So like if you're going for Hajj, you'll be doing a lot of walking, your body is going to be exerting itself. You need to hydrate, right? Now your feet are going to be taking a lot more of the physical exertion during your pilgrimage. So hydrating would help also with the blood flow, right? And also just keep your body and your feet in good condition.
Okay, I think that is it. I think you did touch on people who suffer from diabetics. Is there anything you need to say to them specifically about foot hygiene at home and on Hajj before we wrap up?
So for your diabetic patients, I would recommend that for those that are on Hajj and at home, daily, just take 2 minutes out of your day just to check your feet, make sure there's no cuts or bruises, blisters, that sort of thing, right? If you do notice any pain or something along those lines, right, I would recommend a little bit more. I would recommend a little bit more rest than usual, right? And if it is something a little bit more serious, there are medical personnel in the area that are able to assist. I highly recommend that you go to them and have it checked out. With diabetic patients as well, check your sugar and that every morning to make sure that you are controlled. Monitor your medication, make sure you take your medication, eat enough, don't eat too much, of course, and inshallah, you should be all right.
Ameen. Mohammed Azeem Shaik, a podiatrist based at Podiatry Africa. They are in Rosebank, Johannesburg. If you do want to consult with him, thank you indeed for your guidelines on foot care here on Hajj Diaries, very especially pertaining to Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward you for your efforts. Thank you indeed. Go well and salamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
11 after 10 exactly, time to wrap up. A shout out to our controller, and that's you, up to Salam, and of course the producer, Nasrin Naidu. Thank you indeed. Do hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed doing the interviews here. From my side till next Monday morning at the same time. As always, you take care, especially on the roads. Remember, tomorrow and Friday you'll be joined by Inayat Wadi, that will be running the show. So till then, as always, Assalamu alaikum and Khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.